Okay, the recording is started, right? Yeah, it's now transcribing and writing down what I'm talking, what I'm saying. English. So you guys are supposed to use subroutines, right? I think the rest you guys should be somewhat comfortable with that. The rest is kind of a blur, right? It's kind of hard to understand. So let's talk about that. So I'm gonna open Visual Studio, and then I'm gonna create a new project. Do I have a, okay, I don't have recent templates, it's fine. So it's Visual Basic, and then the platform is Windows. Project type is desktop, right? Desktop. So not that one. I want the .NET framework. Okay, this one. Then this is about sub routines and functions, right? And functions. And then I'm going to create. I'm supposed to say place project in the same direct. It's fine.
Can I
So
say something?
can you what?
I mean, like, I'm gonna put this practical. We are not supposed to use like functions.
Oh yeah, it's fine. I won't mention the functions.
Okay.
Yeah, another very important thing you need to understand is C++ is what is this? Com sci is not infos. If you make that mistake of, I'm saying it's not the same in the sense of that the things that lecturers say in com sci don't apply to the things that lecturers want you to do in informatics. In informatics, they can literally give you a zero if you put something they didn't teach you. You put something that's not on the slides or something that's not required in the practical, they can give you zero if they wanted to. That's how strict they are. Even you're gonna have second semester for informatics, you're gonna have a group project. And that thing's gonna be annoying. Some people don't even contribute. If you think this semester group projects are annoying, wait second semester. Then informatics again next year, second semester again, another group project. Teams, hey, people don't pull in their weight. They're just gonna some people are just gonna sit the whole time until you guys are finished with presentation. The presentation will contribute anything. So yeah, in informatics they tend to be very strict. So just make sure you use only what's on the slides. Even if you go read whatever, Visual Basic, that they don't care. You can do that in second semester in the group project. That's when you can put new things. That's the only time you're allowed. Put new things. For example, you put functions, they didn't mention functions. They can give you a zero. For example, if you look at your practical, here at the top, they mention the things you must use in your code. Use anything that's not listed here. Yeah, you're in big trouble. But by not listed, it's like something that's supposed to be next week's practical. Like for example, functions. That's supposed to be next week's practical. So if you try and include those things, that's no marks are being deducted. Because if you look at your mark sheet here, do you see anywhere where it says functions? Nope. So automatically for here under subroutines, maybe they might deduct 10 marks for you using functions. So yeah, don't do that. Don't. This is not ComSci. In ComSci, you're allowed. You can even put something the lecturer didn't teach. It doesn't. They don't care because it's mainly like ComSci is mainly done for people who want to do research who love maths. That's who make ComSci. Informatics is like for business people. You see, we're making apps, buttons, what that people use on a daily basis. That's the difference between the two modules. So I'm gonna put a button here. Then, yeah, it shouldn't, since I'm only talking about subroutines, it shouldn't take too long. About by ref, by val, easy stuff, those things. And then double click. So I'm just gonna make a simple app, right? Let's say, um, okay, let's say deposit. I don't know. Should I make a subroutine? Yeah, let's do two sub. Should I? Okay, I'll use one subroutine. So I'm gonna have a value private amount as a double because most likely you're gonna in the real world use doubles for money. And then that's the amount you're entering. And then the balance is a double, right? So amount will represent either deposit or withdrawal. But in this case, I just only demonstrate deposit. So because I just want to talk about subroutines. If you didn't notice private sub, even your functions are also your subroutines are also subroutines. If you didn't notice, you see there's private sub here. It's also a subroutine, your button. So that's fair. That's important information that's very important to know. So what's the whole point of a subroutine function, right? Subroutines are similar to functions with a slight variation. Functions give you back something. It's like, for example, I ask you to write down on a piece of paper the answer for 1 plus 1. Excuse me. You write down on a piece of paper the answer for 1 plus 1, which is gonna be 2, right? Let's say you write down on a piece of paper, you write 2. Then I tell you to give me the answer. That moment when you take that paper and you put and you give and you pass it to me, that's what we call returning or giving back a value. That's what functions do. Just like in maths, if you still remember in maths, if you had a function f of x, you see, if you had a function f of x, so they're using the same terminology as in maths. Like I said, if lecturers, people should have educated us more and told us that ComSci is really a maths degree. So you need to actually love maths in order to understand ComSci. Because you see, all of my examples, they're pointing back to maths. So f of x, let's say for example, x minus 2. That's the formula. So if you had to say f of 1, what would be the result for f of 1? It means that this function is named f and it takes in a parameter x. In this case, it's of type integer, but in the real world, we don't do types. We are not that explicit like a computer. A computer have to be very direct. You can't expect it to assume. You see, that's something you shouldn't ever think of a computer to do or expect a computer to do, to assume. It doesn't assume. You have to be explicit. You tell it directly that I want an int, an integer. This function should return an integer. You need to be very explicit. So if it's f of 1, it means that the parameter value x is equals to 1, is going to have the value 1. So that means in my function, I'll replace x with 1 minus 2, which is minus 1. So this is the value that the function will give you back. That's the returned value or the return value. Then how would we represent this in Visual Basic? Start by using the private keyword. Private, if you remember, okay, I'd like to mix up my students. Private is basically means private. It's private. For example, there's things that are private to you, right? Like your secrets. So that means they're only accessed by you, so they're private. And that same reason or that same concept is also applied here. So in this case, where does it belong if we're saying it's private? It only belongs within Form 1. You start to go outside of Form 1, this function or subroutine stops existing. So to create a subroutine, use the keyword sub, which comes from subroutine. So you just say sub in abbreviation. So sub followed by the name of subroutine, right? Subroutine and function is exactly the same thing. The only difference is that a subroutine does not give you back something. A function gives you back something. That's the only difference. So private sub followed by the name of the function. And you always need to capitalize. You always start in capitalize the first letter of each word, right? For example, this does a deposit, right? So I'm gonna call it deposit, right? Like this, and then press enter. See this thing of coding in C++. I was about to put curly braces like this. Yeah, even Java, the language that I'm learning on the side, it also has curly braces. So don't mind me if I make mistakes from time to time and I mix things up. So I'm gonna, you see, knew it's gonna happen. I'm mixing up things. So this is just a comment. I'm just gonna leave it there so that you can remember subroutines of functions, right? So this function is meant to deposit. It's up to you in what approach you wanna use. You want the function to just deposit, the subroutine to just deposit, and then I just calculate the deposit here. Or you want it to actually take in a value. So let's actually do the approach of taking a value. So let's say it takes in the value here. I'm gonna call it value as you need to, you see, like, I remember what I told you, right? In math, right? And when you did math or maths in high school, you didn't specify that x is an integer. You didn't have to be that explicit or that direct. In computers, you must be direct. There's no this thing of predicting. A computer is not a prophet. Always remember that a computer is not a prophet. It doesn't prophesy things. So you need to tell it that the thing that's entering this function or that's going to be passed into this function is of type integer. And they were simply gonna call it value. You can call it whatever. I'm gonna call it value. So there's three ways to declare this parameter. Like this, right? So when you leave it like this, by default, it's by val, right? By value. But imagine there's an invisible by val here. So if you leave it like that, just know it's by val. If you wanted to be specific and literally use by value or by val, that's fine. You can put it there. But then it's kind of redundant. You see, it even tells you by val keyword is unnecessary because it puts it for you behind the scenes. So you can just omit it like that. But let me just put it back, even though it tells me that it's unnecessary. I know it's unnecessary. I'm doing it for the purpose of demonstrating. So then I write something, write a formula that the subroutine does. So in this case, it deposits. So what value is it updating? It's updating my balance over here. So it's going to be balance plus or equals to this value that the function is taking in, this one, right? Then I'm gonna to test. I agree we're talking about by val here, right? To test by val is short for, if you didn't know, by val is short for by value. It means that you are taking this parameter by value, meaning by its literal the literal things that are inside. So for example, it's like, for example, let's say you have a partner, whatever, you buy them a gift. That gift, you are passing it by value because it's literally the gift. By reference, it's it's by reference, by address, meaning where that thing is located. So instead of you giving your partner that gift, you just simply tell them, "Oh, I left your gift in your room in the drawer." That's the address, that's the reference. So those are the two different things. By value is by the literal thing. By reference, it's where it's located. And if you tell someone where it's located, they have the ability to make permanent changes. That's something you need to understand very well. They can make permanent changes. So to show you that this thing, right, you can imagine this validates the gift you're giving your partner. So if you, for some weird reason, that gift, right, or whatever you're trying to change that thing. Let's say you're trying to change it to 20 here, right? You see that this change here, what happens is that you get a copy when you use by val. It takes that the value that you're passing and then makes a copy of it. So when you're changing here, you're actually changing a copy, not the original. But if you use by ref, it means you know where it's stored. So that means you can literally go there and take it out and make permanent changes. So in this case, it's only by val, by copy or by value. So whatever changes I make here, they'll end when the moment it says end sub. So that means it goes back to its original form the moment it sees end sub. So the changes only take effect within the subroutine, not outside. So let's test it out. So that's a simple example. I'm gonna say is equals to input Yeah, I'm not gonna use double implicit, but you know that that's not the purpose of the tutorial. Enter your amount to deposit. Right, and then the user is gonna enter the amount, then you store the amount. Then we call the function to deposit. Then we pass in the amount. Then to check if remember this amount is gonna be its own value. So I'm gonna before I do the deposit, remember the deposit function subroutine. Yeah, I'm so used to function subroutines very rare. Like I don't teach informatics like that. I usually teach com sci, so don't mind me if I keep using function because that's the word I'm used to. For those doing C++, right, a subroutine is basically a void function. That's what a subroutine is. So try to find similarities in that. It's just syntax. It's the way of writing it in Visual Basic. It's a bit different from C++, but it's exactly the same thing. And then by reference, for those doing C++, by reference, it's when you use ampersand in your parameter. If you remember, for those doing C++ or com sci, they know. But then I think everyone should understand. So this is before um, calling subroutine. The value was what? And then I'm gonna output the value, which is amount, right? And then I'm gonna, after calling the, you see, remember the computer does everything sequentially from top to bottom. As you can see, these numbers, they increase going down, right? These numbers on the side. So that's how it reads the file. So that's how I'm doing everything in order, in the right order. If I fail, I'll get unexpected results. So I'm gonna deposit after calling the deposit function that I expect to change my variable. I'm gonna say after calling the subroutine, I'm gonna check what value does this variable has. Because remember what I told you, if you use a subroutine and you call it, it's going to take a value the value of the parameter you've passed or the value of that variable you've passed and then make a copy. Then within the subroutine, you are working with the copy, right? So let's keep that in mind. So let's run it, right? I'm gonna enter 1,000, just any number. So enter the amount to deposit. This enter 1,000. And then is it a double? Oh yeah, it's supposed to be a double. You know what? I don't have energy for too much typing. Let me change it back to an integer. Let's work with integers. Just for the sake of this example, I don't have time to be doing that. Did it fail? What happened? Did it? It's not a double. Why does it think it's a double? There's no double here. It's fine. Let me put the option statements. Option
I
strict
think
on.
say
Yeah.
say I think mistake mhlambi lapha ku message box, like we langathi we don't use plus, we use and.
Where you is in the message box. Oh, you don't.
Yes.
Oh, you think? Nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
You can use both. Uh,
Okay.
uh yeah. I don't know if you guys still have two lecturers. Lecturers tend to teach differently.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait. Oh, because I added the strict on statement, so I need to cast. And then done. Yeah, it's just I think it wanted me to cast. I don't know. Let's test it on my yeah. It wanted the cast, which is stupid because it's supposed to cast for me, which is fine. So before calling the subroutine, the amount, which is the deposit, right, was 1,000. And then after calling it, you see it's still 1,000, still the same value, but you're gonna be like, wait, we changed it most in the function. How come it didn't change? Because you passed by value. You pass the deposit by value, not by reference. So I'm gonna basically copy this exact same function. So I'm gonna rename it and say deposit by value. Then I'm gonna have another function called deposit by reference or by ref, right? And then here I'm gonna say deposit by value. Then you can just simply change which function you're calling. I'll just do that to make my life easier. So when you pass by a reference, right, it means you know the address of where that person lives. And if, for example, if any of you guys know my address, right, and you know my address, let's say I have a house, right, you know where I stay, my address. What's stopping you from going there and then just pouring petrol and burning the house? So that means you can make permanent changes that are going to affect even me, the owner. So that's the power of ByRef. It's not something that should be abused because you have the power to make permanent changes. So you see here the value, I'm going to change it to, let's say 25,000, right? So imagine if your bank account, right, your balance was passed by ref, you can change the balance because you can literally go to where it's stored by reference to its actual address. So that means you're gonna make permanent changes. So when I change here, right, what's happening is that this is actually what's happening behind the scenes. Like, yeah, literally saying change the amount to 25,000, but you didn't write amount. So you see, that's the power of ByRef. So just be very careful of ByRef. You see, with ByRef, you make permanent changes. So I'm gonna say here ByRef, and I'm gonna deposit. This is actually basically in a way you're committing crime because when you deposited 1,000, then you went to where your balance is stored. You knew the address of where your balance is stored. Then you changed it to 25,000. So since you know where it's stored, those changes are going to be permanent. So when I press enter, boom, magic. All of a sudden, the balance is now 25,000 because I passed it by reference. So I went to where it's exactly located. So if I'm going to where it's located, I work with the copy, right? No, with the original, right? So I work with the original thing. So obviously, if I'm working with the original thing, whatever changes I've made, it affects the original thing. With by value, you're working with the copy. So that means the changes on the one the changes you make won't make any difference. So for example, right, I'm gonna show you an example to show you it's a simple but it's a stupid but simple example. This is by everything that's here right on this website, it's by value. You're working with a copy. To show you that you're working with the copy, let me try to change this here. And I'm gonna click inspect. Even you can test it out on your marks on Eve. You can right click on your marks and change it to 100 over 100. So here I'm gonna say Vortex Academy took over Eve and UJ. Then press enter. And then I want you to see something. You see here, the text has changed. But then you might feel like, yeah, you're in power. I'm hacking. Yeah, let me try hacking UJ. And then they catch you, and then you're now in prison. Yeah, don't try. Those people know what they have PhDs for a reason. They know, they studied. So don't take chances. Don't think you're a Superman just because you can change text on a website. I just wrote this, but then it doesn't mean that it is permanent. I'm working to show you that this is by value. I will refresh the website and you see it go back to normal. See, you see, it went back to normal. So you can have fun with it and go on event, test it out. You can just highlight where you want to change. For example, I want to change here. You highlight, then you right click, then you click inspect. Then it's gonna take you to where that text is. There's the text here. Then I change that to, for example, 100 over 100. So I'm not giving you funny ideas to lie to your parents that you're getting 100 in everything and send them a screenshot. Don't lie. And if you're getting zero, show them your zero. Yeah, and then but then just know even if you change that to 100, when you refresh, it's gonna go back to normal. So that's by value. So you always if you see here we changed it to 20, but that the original didn't change to 20 because we worked with the copy within the subroutine. If we when we use the byref subroutine, we saw that the changes became permanent. they existed way beyond the lifespan or the existence of the subroutine. Even when the subroutine stopped existing, the changes persisted. They were permanent. Because you see here, there's the function here. I called it, and then by this line 12, I was done calling it. So it's no longer being used. But those changes that it made, they still affected the original because it still showed the balance that we wrote here. So that's basically the difference between that's the subroutine. And another thing that you might not understand, right? Why use a subroutine? What actually happens when you use a subroutine? So you see, I was recently teaching Java, my Java students come side to A. So Visual Basic, what happens when you call a subroutine? It goes to where that subroutine is called, right? There it is. And then it goes and it looks for a subroutine with that name. It goes down, it checks, is it this one? Nope. Is it this one? Is it the same name? Oh, it's the one. Then it comes here, oh, value. And then, oh, you're passing the amount. When you're passing a variable, what happens is that Visual Basic goes and takes what's inside that variable. In this case, is what you entered. Let's say you entered 1,000. Then it's gonna go down here and then it's gonna say, oh, initialize it to 1,000 because I found out that you're passing 1,000. So now this is 1,000. Excuse me. And this is what's happening behind the scenes. Okay, yeah, let me finish my example. This will be 1,000, uh, and then initializes it to 1,000 here. And then also since value is 1,000, so this just means I'm adding 1,000. I know it's like, why are we going through that long way? Because it saves you code. What if I want to deposit again? That means I have to write these 2 lines again. So sometimes, and it might not even be 2 lines, it might be 15 lines or 30 lines. You don't want to keep repeating yourself. Functions or subroutines, they help us to avoid repetition. So we just take a look at the code that's similar or that's repeated, take a subroutine and then paste that code inside the subroutine. Then see every time we need to use that code, we simply call subroutine. So that means for every 15 lines or 30 lines of code, they'll be replaced by 1 line, which is a call to the subroutine. So you see, we're saving a lot of time in typing um yeah, we're saving a lot of time. So I'll still continue with the explanation. When it sees the when Visual Basic sees this name, it's going to look for that function with that name. Then it takes every code, every line of code just before end sub and after private sub, everything that's within the here. It takes it, copies it, and then it's go in a way, just view it in this way. In a way, it's gonna go here and replace and put that code there. So you see, I don't have to type it myself every time. So that's the whole purpose of subroutines. That's the only reason we're doing this. So if you understand that, you're not gonna ever have issues with subroutines. So that's why even here, okay, the by value part, you just need to be very careful because in this case, I'm working with by ref. So this change here, it actually became permanent. But then if you're calling by value, just imagine that it only calls 1 line. Yeah, just imagine it in this way because remember, it didn't actually change the value when you use by value, the deposit by value subroutine. So just imagine that line for changing it wasn't there. So I hope it makes sense now. Any questions? Yeah, if you have any questions, just unmute and let me know.
Yeah, say it's like I don't understand the package subroutines. If like you can go back and share. Um, what's the use of this 20?
Which thing?
The value when you say like value is equals to 20. Why are you saying value is equals to 20?
No, I was just trying to show you, I wanna explain by value, the difference between by value and by ref. You see, I changed it to 20 here, which is this variable that we're gonna pass in. In this case, we just call it value, but then The actual variable that's being passed is this one over here. So that's this value variable represents this. So in a way, it's like you can imagine there's amount here. It's like we're giving that variable another name in a way. So it's like I'm literally working with amount, but I wanted to I'm changing it to 20 and 25,000 because I was explaining by value and by ref that if you change amount in here or this parameter, the changes don't go beyond the function, right? Or the subroutine. The moment it sees n sub, if you're working with by value, the moment it sees n sub, value goes back to normal, which is amount. It goes back to the normal amount, its normal value. But then when you're working with by ref, you literally went to the address of where that variable is stored. Then you changed it to 25,000. That's why the output. I don't know. Maybe I'm moving a bit too fast, but I did demonstrate this. You deposit 1,000, right? And then you press enter, and then it shows a message that this is before calling subroutine. Before I call the subroutine, of which the subroutine is that line of code values equals to 20, and the one by ref it has values equals to 25,000. So I was testing that part, those changes that I've made, whether they were permanent or not. In this case, I'm calling by ref, so it should be permanent. So even after I've called the function, the subroutine, and I'm no longer using the subroutine, it should have changed my amount variable to 25,000. And then I'm gonna click OK. You see, after calling the subroutine, it indeed changed it to 25,000 because we're passing it by ref. But then if I was to change this back to deposit by value, you see that amount won't change to 20 because we did set amount to 20 here. So I deposit 1,000. So before calling it, it's 1,000. After calling it, it's still 1,000 because those changes, you're working with the copy. So you change the copy, not an original. So yeah, it doesn't mean that now you have more money. No, you're working with the copy. With by value, you work with the copy. So this line is just to demonstrate that the changes that I've made, they can either be permanent or temporary.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys can just to simply test, you can just change this part over here. You can call deposit by value, then call deposit by reference. Then maybe test it out, change different values here. That's up to you. That's all there is to explain about subroutines. There's nothing more I can explain. Oh, you can also to pass more parameters, you can say comma, then you say something else. Let's say x as integer, blah blah. That's up to you. And then to align, you don't need to know that. That's not necessary. That's more of like a personal preference thing. I'm not gonna talk about that one. And you can also have a function by the text and nothing. That's up to you. There's different functions or subroutines. So any more questions? I doubt you guys have any more questions. So let's just explain a bit about the practical. Maybe there's some things you're not understanding. One of your classmates, um, one of your classmates has a problem keeping track of the allocated allowance on a monthly basis. They've asked you to write a program that will allow them to keep track of their spending. They would like to record all their spending at the end of each week in the month. At the end of each week, so that means you're gonna have an array, right? Its size is gonna be the number of weeks because you're keeping track of the amount per week. So that means you need to get the number of weeks. They didn't tell you, right? Yeah, they didn't mention it, but you're supposed to know if it's at the end of each week. Remember, month is 4 weeks, right? So that means your array is gonna be of size of the number of weeks. It could be you could only keep it for 2 weeks. That's up to you. any number of weeks, even zero. It's up to you. As long as you are resizing the array to number of weeks, because you are keeping track of the spending for those number of weeks. If I were you, I would name my array spending, right? And then here it should be dynamic because, okay, let me see. They said fixed, né? Dynamic is not, you're not told, they are fixed size. Per week, you have to use common sense. How many weeks are there in a month? It's 4. And then as a double, because you're calculating amount spent, right? And then this is how you would declare it. And then from there, you start working with array. After each transaction, that's, yeah. And then this is pretty much exactly the same thing. It's been the same for the past 2 practicals, I think. There's nothing new here. After each transaction, right, the program should show the user how much money they spent, which is exactly the same thing. There was just a slight difference, right? They must show how much money they spend, how much money they have remaining, along with the average of money they used. All the above should be displayed in a grid. So your grid, right? Let me show you how your grid is gonna look. There's 2 ways you could do your grid. You can have this is your grid, right? Remember this is not a tablet, so don't expect cute drawings here. So this is your grid, right? So you could have here, which represents the number of weeks or the week number, right? Yeah, very ugly. And then you're gonna have 1, 2, week 3, week 4, and then you can start displaying the things, right? So this is amount spent, right? How much money they spent, yeah. So this is amount spent. Yeah, it's hard to type with the laptop, to draw with the laptop. It's the amount spent. This means spent. And then you should have what else? Remaining, which is balance. I'm gonna say balance. Then you're gonna have average. I don't know, but let's think about average. I'm not sure if it's average for everything or what. Average amount of money they used. Mm, so yeah, it's average money. So you have to divide by number of weeks somewhere. I don't know which one you're gonna see. They've used, which is the amount of money you've spent. Yeah, they've used. So that means we're not looking at the balance. So we're looking at the amount spent, the average. How do you get the average? You sum up all these numbers divided by how many things you've added up. So instead of displaying average, don't display it here. Your average is supposed to come here. You're supposed to have a label here or some text here that says average, right? Then you sum up here. Let's say this is 10, this is 5, and then this is 2, this is 1, and then you add all of them up, right? So this will be 18, right? Then you say 18 divided by 4, then you write the answer here. So this will be 18, yeah, this is divided by 4. So you sum up all the amount that was spent so that you get an average of, on average, how much money you're spending per week. Remember, there's 4 weeks, and I have a balance that I've spent for the whole 4 weeks. So I need to get an average of how much money I spend per week. So this is how this is the first approach. Another one is, um, I don't know why which other one. You can do the other one, but it's gonna make your diagram complicated, your grid complicated. This is bad. So this is how your grid should look. Yeah, and then that's the rest you guys know. For next loops, these are just loops. Yeah, I think everything else should be pretty straightforward. The rest should be like maybe you guys contact me and ask me, I'm having this error in my code, I got stuck here, whatever. Yeah, that's the rest. But then the rest should be straightforward. The project is pretty straightforward this week. It's like it explains everything properly. Okay, just except for this part, you have to figure out that your array should be of size 4. You must use common sense there. And then here you need to decide how you plan to display or structure a grid. I showed you how you can plan it. So that's sorted. So yeah, I think you guys should be good to go. Yeah, I think I can stop recording now. Any more questions?